Um, just to address the administrative portion of this hearing, let me acknowledge and recognize the members of the committee and put into the records. The members of the committee, as Vice Chairperson, is Senator Angara. Members are Senator Nancy Binay, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Bato de la Rosa, Senator J.V. Arcito, Senator Chis Escudero, Senator Bongo, Senator Lito Lapid, Senator Marcos, Senator Grace Poe, Senator Francis Tolentino, Senator Raffy Tulfo, Senator Mark Villar. And representing the minority is Senator Risa Ontiveros. I would like to also put on record the ex officio members, our Senate Pro Tempore, Senator Lauren Legarda, for the majority, our majority floor leader, Senator Joel Villanueva, our minority floor leader, Senator Coco Pimentel, and of course, yours truly as the chairperson. Once again, good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for your presence today. I welcome and congratulate Secretary Ben Jokno for his appointment as the Secretary of the Department of Finance. Let me also welcome and congratulate Commissioner Lilia Guillermo, ma'am. Executive Director Marlene Lucero Calubag for the NTRC, ma'am. Assistant Secretary Juvie Danofrata, and congratulations to your promotion. Let me also recognize our National Treasurer Rosalia De Leon. Let me also acknowledge, but I don't think he's virtually present, the appointment of Commissioner Yoji Filemon Ruiz, but he is, I believe he is not available today because he tested positive, if I'm not mistaken, and he developed symptoms yesterday. He is ably represented by Deputy Commissioner Edward James D. Buco. Let me also recognize one of our hardworking members, Senator Raffy Tulfo, and he's physically present right now. Let me also recognize the virtual presence of the former chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Senator Sani Angara, and Senator Nancy Binay.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
As an opening statement, various jurisdictions around the world have started to focus their policy direction not only on the pursuit of the government's inherent right to collect taxes, but also on the promotion and protection of taxpayers' right in order to improve the trustworthiness of the tax system and promote the taxpayers' willingness to comply with their tax obligations. Raising more and better revenues does not solely rely on expanding the tax base, as mobilizing public support for tax reforms require building the taxpayers' trust and confidence in the government processes. Thus, in due recognition of the immense contribution of taxpayers in funding the operations of the entire bureaucracy, I now take as a big part of my obligation and responsibility as chairperson of the Committee on Ways and Means in this 19th Congress, the pursuit of the ultimate welfare of our taxpayers through legislation. With the passage in the past decades of numerous tax measures that upheld and enhanced the right of the government to demand and collect taxes from the people, the time has come to legislate and adopt policies that would promote and protect the rights and privileges of those where taxes emanate. and these are no other than our dear taxpayers. The Senate Committee on Ways and Means of the 19th Congress aims to put focus on the taxpayers and is envisioned to be the taxpayers' legislative guardian that balances the interest of government and stakeholders and ensures the revenues be effectively allocated for economic and social developments. Now I put to fore the committee's 7-point mission to be the Senate's Readiness Committee. Readiness stands for R, responsiveness, mindful of the general welfare of taxpayers and Filipinos alike, and the state's role for laying out infrastructures aimed to balance interests. The committee shall endeavor to make timely decisions in situations of national urgency and economic significance. Efficiency and digitalization. The committee shall endeavor to promote innovation in all processes involved in taxation, ensuring that agencies provide taxpayers quick, accurate, and responsive service through proper implementation of modernization efforts as mandated by TRAIN and CMTA laws, and proper compliance with laws on ease of doing business and anti-red tape. Accountability, the committee shall lead by example and hold itself accountable together with the public sector in the conduct of its legislative functions. The committee shall hold high the trust of the people and reward taxpayers with justice and transparency in all its dealing. Integrity, with integrity as a cornerstone of public service in mind, the committee shall mandate concerned government offices to use their powers responsibly, utilize its resources with honesty, and to always provide accurate information. Equitably and uniformity, the committee shall strive to live up to the constitutional principle of uniformity and equitability in taxation in the conduct of its hearings and affairs. In the deliberation of tax measures, the committee shall consider all measures by using a uniform and unbiased standard, take into account that like subjects will be treated reasonably. Sustained revenue growth, the committee shall endeavor to act and to ensure proper implementation of tax legislation and other efficient administrative measures that will generate sustained revenue growth, not only for the benefit of taxpayers, but the Filipino as a whole. And lastly, taxpayer-centric leadership. The committee shall aim to lead with taxpayers' welfare as priority and provide them with gold standard treatment by finding ways to improve their experience and revenue-generating agencies. Ready to serve the people. The committee shall guard taxpayers with measures that not only balance advocacies, but more importantly, address multi-layered issues to ensure economic stability and growth, promote equity, and foster cooperation. The committee shall also closely collaborate with government and shall endeavor to keep a balance between the tax authority and the taxpayer. Makakasa po ang lahat na ang layunin ng committee ay magtaguyod ng mga balanseng polisiya na magproprotekta sa mga nagbabayad ng tamang buwis at magpapalakas ng ating sektor ng pananalapi nang sa gayon ay masiguro pa din natin ang tuluyang pagbangon at paglago ng ekonomiya ng ating bansa. Maraming salamat po. With that, let me direct the committee secretary to acknowledge our resource persons for today.
Good morning, Your Honors. For today's organizational meeting and briefing, we have the following resource persons. From the Bureau of Treasury, we have National Treasurer Rosalia V. De Leon. From Fiscal Incentives Review Board, we have Assistant Secretary Juvie Danofrata and Attorney Mark Lester Aure. From the National Tax Research Center, we have Executive Director Marlene A. Lucero Calubag. From the Bureau of Customs, we have Deputy Commissioner Edward James D. Buco. From the Bureau of Internal Revenue, we have Commissioner Lilia Catrice Guillermo and Deputy Commissioner Romeo Lumagi Jr. And from the Department of Finance, we have Undersecretary Antoinette C. Tionco and Secretary Benjamin E. Diokno.
Thank you, Committee Secretary. And let me acknowledge the physical presence of Senator Francis Tolentino. As in previous Congresses, the Committee on Ways and Means will simply adopt the pertinent provisions of Rules 10 and Rules 11 of the Rules of the Senate, as well as Resolution 5 or the Rules of Procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation, as the rules of the Committee on Ways and Means, subject to any advisory to be issued regarding the use of electronic signatures. Any motion to approve the adoption of the rules?
So move, Mr. Chair.
Any second? Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. With that, before we go into the briefing of the Department of Finance family, I would like to ask our senators if they have any opening statements.
I have no opening statement, Mr. Chairman. I'm supposed to transfer to the other committee, public order, but let this be a continuing manifestation, which probably the chair can expound. I would have asked some questions relative to our current trade imbalances. How much is the export vis-a-vis the importation going in? And how do we address this trade deficit in the years ahead? Siguro the chairman would be clarifying that as you move on, because I have to transfer to the other committee on public order. Yun lamang po, Mr. Chairman, at maraming salamat. But we have a lot of time. Budget hearings, I can clarify that, and we expect answers from the resource persons here present. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple of questions, and my questions will be directed to the gentleman from the Bureau of Customs and from the BIR, the lady from the BIR. I received complaints recently from a blogger and also from an online seller, and their complaints were kind of similar. They said there were agents from the BIR who went to their house and knocked on the door and were inquiring about their tax payments. And I do acknowledge that every Filipino who are earning should pay their taxes. Pero if we are really serious in collecting revenues to maximize the state revenues, is it better if we would concentrate on the big fishes, not on some small fry? Kasi nga po, I said that dahil barya-barya lang pong kinikita ng mga blogger, especially online seller. And alam naman po natin during pandemic, these are the people na nag-survive, providing for their family, nagdiskarte para kumita. Now, sa Bureau of Customs, kung gusto po talaga natin kumolekta ng malaking revenue, siguro po unahin natin yung mga oil smuggler. Una, tanungin ko, ano po itong contract that the Bureau of Customs or the DOF, Department of Finance, entered into with SGS? 8 billion pesos for 6 years. Is it worth it? Or can we not just, buy a technology like them and then have our people from the Bureau of Customs qualified to do the job para makatipid po tayo? And even while we speak, may mga dumarating po sa akin complaints na rampant pa rin daw po ang oil smuggling. Rampant pa rin daw po yung paihi. Ano pong ginagawa ng Coast Guard? I thought meron po kayong coordination with the Philippine Coast Guard, Maritime. And bakit po nakakalusot? Doon sa paihi, doon po tina-transfer yung oil from the barko to the barge and then going to the depot. And then yung oil marking na nalusutan daw po kahit na meron na tayong tinatawag na SGS doing the oil marking. Hindi raw po lahat nalalagyan ng oil marking papuntang oil depot. Therefore, the only way they would be able to determine how many oils were transferred to the oil depot because of the oil marking, and that's where they based the payment of taxes, right? And then my second follow-up questions is, paano po maisa-isang puntahan ang mga gasoline stations, mga tanker, to make sure na para yung mga gasoline station ay nakakarga doon, may mga oil marking? Yun lang po yung aking katanungan, Mr. Chair.
Before I direct that question to the customs, may we hear if Senator Angara has any opening statements?
None, Mr. Chair. Just congratulations on being elected to chair this committee. I think you're the right man to chair it. And we'd like to greet Secretary Jokno, Commissioner Guillermo, and their team. Magandang umaga po, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'll reserve my questions for later.
Thank you, Senator Angara. We call on the Bureau of Customs to respond to the query of Senator Tulfo.
I'm sorry, if I may add one
Yeah, go
question
ahead po.
before he answers the question. Bakit hanggang ngayon po hindi pa rin digitalize ang Bureau of Customs? Di ba it's about time na dapat po digitalize na tayo as opposed to mano-mano, at kapag nagmano-mano po, marami nagmamano sa mga padrino at yung po mga cabinet sa matanggapan ng Bureau of Customs, bukas pasok at may sinasaksak. I'm sorry for the word, but yun po yung mga nakarating sa amin na reklamo or feedback. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Chair, in response to the query of the Honorable Senator Tulfo, regarding the fuel marking, Your Honor, as of it started in 2019. No? So for 3 years, we have already implemented the program of fuel marking. In fact, we have already intensified the program. So from December 2019 up to July 2022, we have marked 45.458 billion liters of fuel. And out of that, we have collected taxes in the amount of 457.98 billion pesos. So to the question as to whether it is worth, I think it's worth the price being paid to the service provider, Mr. Chair. And as to the question that how do we test the gasoline stations all over the country? So this program is implemented jointly by the Bureau of Customs and the Bureau of Internal Revenue. So for the Bureau of Customs, mostly we concentrate on the marking, because there are 2 stages here, the marking and the testing. So the marking is done in the oil depots, in the barges, and that's the data that we have, that for 3 years we have marked more than 45 billion liters. So as to the testing, this is jointly done by the BIR and the Bureau of Customs. And
Do you have enough people to do that? I thought you're overwhelmed. I thought you don't have enough people to physically go to each and every gas station.
Mr.
check the
Chair, as to
fuel
the personnel of the BIR, I think they have enough people to do it, because they have people in every district.
Okay, so maybe it's about time you do that first before going after the bloggers and the online sellers. I think, wouldn't it be better? I think so.
Yes, actually, Your
Sure.
Honor, we are intensifying the
Okay.
program of fuel marking. In fact, we have already closed some gasoline stations for selling unmarked fuel, Your Honor.
Do you have the records for that?
Yes, we
Mr.
can submit.
Buko?
Yes, sir. We can submit that to your office, Your Honor, or to the Honorable Committee, Your Honor.
And then last na lamang po. Before my question, before I would raise my last question to the Bureau of Customs, gusto kong malaman ninyong lahat na wala akong against sa ukay-ukay, right? In fact, my people, my driver, and my kasambahay, bumibili sila sa ukay-ukay, and I don't stop them because yun ang gusto nila, affordable para sa kanila dahil mura. Di ho ba ang ukay-ukay ay bawal po yan? Nasa batas po natin yan. Dapat po, hindi tayo nagbebenta ng mga ukay-ukay dahil yung ukay-ukay po yan ay mga second hand. Dapat po donations yan, dumidiretso yan sa DSWD. Di ba? Tama? You agree with me?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
In fact, there is a policy in the
There is a
DSWD
policy.
that they do not receive ukay-ukay.
Exactly. So why in the heck, tumingin ka sa kaliwat kanan, pumunta ka Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, nagkalat ang mga ukay-ukay. So ano pong ginagawa ng Bureau of Customs? Bakit nakalusot itong mga ukay-ukay? Ikaw na mismo nagsabi na may policy tayo na hindi dapat binebenta ang ukay-ukay dahil dapat yan ay donation galing sa ibang bansa at dapat yan dumidiretso sa DSWD at charity na pinamimigay sa mga mahirap, sa mga calamities. At bakit ibinebenta po yan sa halos lahat ng tindahan, may kita mo sa sulok-sulukan ng Pilipinas?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for that question, Your Honor. Actually, Your Honor, we have been implementing measures, no, against smuggling.
Implementing measures, gaano na katagal po yung
ukay-ukay,
nag-implement? Yung ukay-ukay po, ilang taon na po yan?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, as we heighten or intensify our efforts against smuggling, the smugglers also become more innovative, no? And
I don't think so. Sorry, Mr. Buko.
Yes.
Gumala lang po kayo dyan sa mga kanto, sa mga kalye. Dyan sa Divisoria, dyan sa Baclaran. Kahit sa ang sulok ngayon, marami ng ukay-ukay. Ano ba kayo, bulag? I'm sorry for the word again.
Actually, Your Honor, one factor that really make it hard for us to find, no? Kasi ang pag tiningnan sa X-ray kasi yan, Your Honor, for example, because there are also textiles.
Okay, titingnan sa X-ray. Sige, sabihin natin nakalusot po sa X-ray. Okay, paglabas na X-ray, siguro nakipagsabuatan, may tinatawag na yellow lane, red lane, green lane, whatever. Ang ibig kong sabihin, di ho ba dapat kayo mga taga Bureau of Customs, pero kayong tinatawag na follow-up operations. So kung nakalusot po doon sa loob ng pier, paglabas po ng pier, di ba, hinahabol nyo dapat yan? So pag may nakita po kayo dyan ng mga ukay-ukay, malalaking ukay-ukay, I don't have any against these people, selling ukay-ukay. Probably they want to make money. Wala tayong problema dyan. Ang pinag-usapan ko natin dito, yung hindi ginagawa ata ng Bureau of Customs yung kanilang trabaho dahil yung mga ukay-ukay na nasa labas na nagkalat sa buong Pilipinas, bakit po hindi sinisita? Siguro po yung mga maliliit, wag na ho natin huliin. Siguro sitahin lang saan galing to, sino nagparating nito, sino ang importer, sino ang consignee, etc. Palagay ko hindi na po tinatanong dahil siguro yung consignee ay friendship na.
Actually, Your Honor, we have seized, no, several shipments of ukay-ukay, and we have filed cases also against the responsible.
Kung marami na po kayo ng file na cases, so bakit hanggang ngayon po rampan pa rin yung ukay-ukay? Sir.
We will intensify more our efforts against that scheme, Mr. Senator.
Thank you, sir. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
for allowing me to ask
Senator
questions.
Tulfo, for that. Hindi ko ho alam, bawal pala ukay-ukay.
Bawal po yun,
Sa
Mr.
tapat
Chair.
ng City Hall namin, may ukay-ukay doon eh.
Correct.
No? Sa tapat, sa gilid, memorize ko kasi I freak, taga doon ako eh. No, I have to alert the local government that what they're doing is not allowed. But you also have, maybe I want to suggest also to DEPCOM Buko is to cooperate with the local government units because like my experience, I've been a mayor for quite some times. I remember there's ukay-ukay sa tapat ho ng City Hall namin. No? And sorry, but I didn't know it was not allowed. No? But my point there is the local governments might not be informed that this type of operations are not within the bounds of the law.
Yes, sir.
So,
One more, Mr. Chair. Siguro, since hindi po kayang kontrolin ng Bureau of Customs yung pagpasok ng ukay-ukay, siguro we have to come up with a system na I don't know, legalize ukay-ukay? I don't know. What do you think? Kung hindi niyo na po kayang talagang pigilan, kausapan niyo po siguro yung mga mababatas na para baguhin yung batas natin, yung policy to make the ukay-ukay legal na pwede na pong pumasok ng bansa at magbayad po ng tamang buwis. Kasi po sa ngayon wala pong binabayad na buwis ang ukay-ukay. Tama? Mali. Di ba? Wala po ni singkong duling. So kung wala siyang binabayad na singkong duling na buwis, bakit po nagbebenta siya at pinagkakitaan? So siguro po it's about time, kung hindi niyo po kayang pigilan, pagbayarin lang po ng buwis itong mga ukay-ukay na ito para naman kumita ang gobyerno kahit papaano. Kaysa naman po tinutugis niyo po yung mga online seller na barya-barya lang po ang kinikita. Tinutugis niyo po yung mga vlogger na barya-barya lang kinikita. Samantalang ayan po, ukay-ukay, ang laking sindikato po nasa likod niyan, oil smuggling, etc. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir.
So,
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, the policy against the entry of ukay-ukay, actually, Your Honor, is Department of Health policy. The policy was issued by the Department of Health for health reasons. As to the suggestion of the chairman, Mr. Chair, we will immediately do the suggestion that we will coordinate with the local government units all over the country and inform them that the said items are prohibited, Mr. Chair.
tayo ko rin po, Mr. Chair, matanggalan ng trabaho na buhay. Sa ngayon kasi marami na pong umaasa sa ukay-ukay, marami na pong mga families na ang kinabubuhay po nila ay ukay-ukay. But, hey, it's not my fault. Huwag sana magalit sa akin yung nagbebenta na ukay-ukay. Maybe just like you, Mr. Chair, they don't know na bawal po pala yun. Ang nangyari kasi, Mr. Chair, binibili din nila yung Mr. Chair. Binibili nila yun. They didn't know na yung pinagbilhan nila hindi nagbabayad ng buwis. Samantalang ito nagtitinda ng mga ukay-ukay, maliliit na tindahan ng ukay-ukay, nagbabayad po sila ng buwis. Nag-register po siguro sila sa BPLO para ma-recognize po ng BPLO, magbigyan sila ng yung plaka na sila legit at nagbabayad ng buwis sa city na kung saan nandun yung kanilang negosyo. And these little ukay-ukay stores, they're paying taxes. Whereas itong mga nagparating ng ukay-ukay, ni Singkong Duling, wala pong binabayaran. And don't tell me, Mr. Buko, sir, na hindi niyo po alam yun. Siguro po, pati yung pusa at yung si Kuting dyan sa pag-alaga sa Bureau of Customs, alam na kung sino yung mga broker. Siguro po, imposible sa Bureau of Customs, alam niya kung sino pong mga broker doon. Kung sino pong mga consignee. Pero kung sasabihin niyo po, I'm sorry again, kayo po sa mga taga Bureau of Customs, hindi niyo po alam, meron po palang ganon, parang kahapon na po kayo pinanganak. Sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. We recognize the virtual presence of Senator Pimentel and Senator Cayetano. Good morning, ma'am and sir. On that note, RA 4653 prohibits secondhand clothes being sold in the country. So that's the legal basis of Senator Tulfo's manifestation earlier or questions earlier. And it's about time to revisit this law. Like I said, we cannot fault the retailers for selling ukay-ukay because I don't think they know it's illegal. In fact, many of the retailers pay business permits, but they sell ukay-ukay. So I don't think they are aware that those being sold are not legal under RA 4653. Nevertheless, it's about to revisit, and would like to seek the comments of the Bureau of Customs as to how to what are the things that we need to revisit on the law RA 4653 and give us some suggestions to that effect.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. With that, we will now go ahead with the briefing from Secretary Diokno of the DOF. And I know that in the agenda, we put a lot of things, but we just want to get a snapshot of where we are in terms of revenue, a snapshot of leakages, a snapshot of the performance of the past tax reform laws, and a snapshot of priority measures and plans and programs for the next 6 years. So this is an organizational meeting, so we'd like to get just a flavor of the department's performance and intentions for the next 6 years. So we turn over the microphone to Secretary Diokno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Committee on Ways and Means, Chairperson Win Gatchalian, Vice Chair Sunny Angara, and distinguished senators present here and virtually today. Magandang umaga po. First of all, I'd like to express our sincerest gratitude to the Senate for passing game-changing tax reforms in the Congress. The tax reform laws you have enacted have leapfrogged the Philippines into the company of the world's fastest growing economies. When the pandemic struck and stalled our economic growth, these laws were a critical factor in maintaining fiscal sustainability. The Philippines' solid macroeconomic fundamentals, reinforced by structural reforms, enabled us to withstand the harsh effects of the pandemic and chart a clear path to recovery. The Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion Law, or TRAIN, corrected the long-standing inequity of the income tax system. It lowered the personal income tax rates of individuals, simplified the estate and donors taxes, expanded the value-added tax base, adjusted the oil excise taxes, and introduced excise tax on sweetened beverages. Since 2018, TRAIN has raised 476 billion pesos in additional revenues to fund the government's infrastructure, social, and healthcare programs. Meanwhile, the Tax Amnesty Act allowed errant taxpayers to affordably settle their outstanding tax liabilities while providing the government more revenues for its priority programs. From 2019 to 2021, total additional collections from this measure reached 14.6 billion pesos. The increased excise taxes on seen products such as alcohol and tobacco was aimed to discourage the consumption of these unhealthy goods while ensuring funding for the universal healthcare program. These measures raised a total of 85 billion pesos in incremental revenues from 2020 to 2021. Overall, total tax intake from the enacted tax reform measures amounted to 576 billion pesos. Passed last year, the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act, or CREATE, is considered as the most significant fiscal stimulus for businesses in our recent history. It provided an immediate corporate income tax rate cut of 10 percentage points for domestic, micro, small, and medium enterprises, and 5 percentage points cut for all other corporations. In addition, it promoted a tax incentive system that is performance-based, time-bound, targeted, and transparent. The tax incentive system under CREATE balances the interests of all stakeholders while remaining faithful to the fundamental principles and mindful of the country's fiscal challenges. With CREATE, investor confidence has continuously improved. Last year, our foreign direct investment inflows reached a record high of $10.5 billion US dollars. And for the first 5 months of this year, FDI inflows already amounted to $4.2 billion US dollars, up by 19% from the previous year's level. Now, in terms of our fiscal performance, government revenues posted a double-digit growth of 16% during the first half of 2022, compared to the same period in 2021. Both tax and non-tax revenues posted double-digit growth of 15% and 27%, respectively. Tax collections from revenue-generating agencies all posted positive growth, stemming largely from the full reopening of the domestic economy. In particular, collections from the Bureau of Internal Revenue increased by 10% year-on-year. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Customs' strong collection growth of 32% is attributed to intensified enforcement against illegal operations, improved compliance by traders to customs laws, higher imports growth, the depreciation of the peso, and improved valuation. The latest fiscal ratios show that we are on track in achieving our revenue and tax effort targets for the year. For the first half of the year, our revenue effort, or the share of total revenues to GDP, reached 16.7%. This is significantly above the full year target of 15.2%, and while of GDP. Revenue effort for the second half of the year has to be at least 13.7% of GDP to achieve the full year target. And based on historical, this is doable. Meanwhile, tax effort, or the share of taxes as to GDP, reached 14.9% as of the first half of 2022. And again, this is higher than the full year target of 14.5% and is already at par with the pre-pandemic level. This sends a strong signal of economic recovery for the country. The tax effort has to reach at least 14.1% of GDP for the rest of the year to achieve the 2022 target. While we are reaping the benefits of structural reforms passed and the solid macroeconomic fundamentals left behind by the Duterte administration, the operating environment remains uncertain and difficult. Inflation is expected to remain elevated for as long as world prices of oil and other key commodities remain high. The effects of the pandemic linger, while the global political economy remains unpredictable. But we are fully prepared to address ongoing risks and challenges. The economic team is committed to implementing a medium-term fiscal framework that will serve as our blueprint to reduce fiscal deficit, promote fiscal sustainability, and enable robust economic growth. The framework proposes measures that will improve tax administration, enhance the fairness and efficiency of our tax system, and promote environmental sustainability to address climate change. The bureaus have been directed to fast-track the digitalization of our revenue and customs systems to boost our tax effort, enhance tax administration, and eliminate discretion. In addition, we will work for the passage of the remaining tax reform packages of the Duterte administration, along with other key policy measures that would help accelerate our recovery. The proposed measures of the DOF include the Real Property Valuation and Assessment Reform Bill. This aims to broaden the tax base used for property and property-related taxes of the national government, national and local governments. The measure mandates the adoption of internationally accepted real property valuation standards, rationalization of the process of valuation, the establishment of a single valuation base for taxation. The bill's urgent enactment will assist the LGUs in optimizing revenue collections, which in turn will promote genuine local autonomy. Next is the Passive Income and Financial Intermediary Taxation Bill, or PEFITA. PEFITA is aimed at making the taxation of passive income, financial intermediaries, and financial transactions simpler, fairer, and more efficient. PEFITA mandates the reduction in the number of tax rates on passive income and financial intermediaries. We will also pursue the imposition of VAT on digital goods and services. Now, this is aimed at leveling the playing field between traditional and digital businesses. This bill clarifies that goods or properties, including digital or electronic in nature, and services, including those rendered electronically, are subject to value-added tax. Next, we have the proposal to impose excise tax on single-use plastic bags as part of the government's climate mitigation efforts. This bill proposes to impose a 20 peso excise tax per kilogram of single-use plastics removed from the place of production or released from the customs house. Finally, we have a proposal to rationalize the mining fiscal regime. This will encourage full public disclosure on extractive industry and increase government share by imposing a single fiscal regime applicable to all mining agreements. The DOF also supports the passage of the Military and Uniform Personnel Pension Reform Bill, the Capital Market Development Bill, the Livestock Development and Competitiveness Bill, and bills introducing amendments to the Land Bank and the Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation Charter. Our fiscal consolidation strategy will bring down our debt to GDP ratio from the current 62.1% to less than 60% by 2025. It will cut the deficit to GDP ratio from current 6.5% to 3% by 2028. The implication is clear. We do not have to borrow as much as we did during the crisis years. At the same time, we will continue to boost domestic economic activity with our massive infrastructure investments, equivalent to 5 to 6% of GDP annually. The economic team commits to work closely with Congress and all stakeholders to transform the Philippine economy and turn our socio-economic priorities into reality. We will work as one in building a robust economy for a faster, greener, and more inclusive growth that benefits all Filipinos. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary, for that presentation. Before I open the floor to questions, let's continue with the presentation from the different DOF offices, so that we'll have just one Q&A later on after the presentation. So we will now call on the BIR, Commissioner Laila Guillermo.
Honorable Chairman Win Gatchalian, Vice Chair Sani Angara, distinguished members of the Senate Committee on Ways and Means, DOF Secretary Ben Jokno, colleagues in government, good morning. My presentation, please. Yeah. First of all, may I introduce to you our management committee. The BIR is composed of 4 groups: Operations Group, Legal Group, Information Systems Group, and Resource Management Group. And one of the deputy commissioners is with me in this meeting. My discussion items, yeah, that one. Yeah, okay. My discussion items are as follows, but maybe I will have to skip some of them in as much as Secretary Jokno has mentioned about the train law, the create law, and everything. And most important, perhaps, for BIR to discuss the BIR digital transformation journey. And next slide, please. So I'm grateful to inform you that despite the pandemic, the men and women of BIR achieved their collection targets in 2020 and 2021, and a little bit below in 2019. In the first semester of 2022, we we still have we below target by 6.33%, but in the next semester, we commit to surpass this goal by at least 20%. In the next slide, before the COVID-19 pandemic, BIR had a total collection of 2.1 trillion, which reached 96.26% of the 2.2 trillion goal for the year, translated to 11.2% tax effort. In 2020, BIR enormously exceeded its target of 1.686 trillion with a revenue collection of 1.956 trillion. In 2021, the Bureau collected 2.1 trillion, surpassing the 2.81 trillion target by 5 billion, and recorded a 10.75% tax effort. As of June 2022, BIR revenue collection has amounted to 1.136 trillion, which is 77 billion lower than the 1.2 trillion target, but it corresponds to 11% tax effort. Next slide, please. BIR revenue collection mostly comes from taxes on net income and profit, accounting for 53.3% of total revenues. Halfway through 2022, income taxes reached 606 billion, covering more than half of total BIR collections. Next to income tax is the value-added tax, which accounts for 19.7%. As of June 2022, VAT collection has reached 224 billion. That is already more than half of its usual level since the pre-pandemic year of 2019. Significant amount of collection also comes from excise taxes at 13%. For the first half of 2022, excise taxes totaled 149 billion. Percentage taxes and other taxes brought in 56 billion and 101 billion collection for January to June 2022, respectively. Therefore, in the next slide, we will collect a level of 619.65 billion for income taxes, 277.39 billion for value-added tax, 199.28 billion excise taxes, 80 billion for percentage taxes, and 125 billion other taxes. For the rest of for the rest of 2022, we will exert best efforts to collect these amounts. And the next slide, one strategy we will focus on is to analyze negative performances of the various industries like automobile, cement, construction, non-essential, petroleum, power, real estate, and formulate creative ways of addressing this slow performance of these sectors. I think I will no longer discuss our tax collections on train laws in creation of bogus and tax amnesties, and we will proceed to the 2022 priority programs and projects of the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. And for calendar year 2022, our priority programs are structured as follows. We have enforcement programs like the Run After Tax Evaders program, the Oplan Candado, the broadening of the tax base, intensified audit and investigations. And for the tax compliance monitoring programs, innovating taxpayers' experience and BIR service processes, streamlining of creditable withholding tax rates, re-architecture and enhancement of e-submission, re-architecture and development of the e-filing system, taxpayer awareness program, integration of the alcohol industry and the enhanced internal revenue stamps integrated systems, And the last group is the enhancement of administration and support services programs, the nationwide BIR payroll system, expedite the recruitment of new personnel, strengthen budget management, aligning policies to a BIR digital workplace, integrity management program enabling the digital backbone of the BIR. So with all of this, we want to show you the accomplishments of our, let's say, Run After Tax Evaders program. Again, this emphasizes the criminal nature of tax evasion in order to have a maximum deterrent effect on taxpayers, thereby enhancing voluntary compliance and promoting public confidence in the tax system. So despite the pandemic, our operations group continued to implement the Run After Tax Evaders program, and in the shown in the screen are those number of cases filed with DOJ with the aggregate liabilities that we will pursue and filed with the CTA, the Court of Tax Appeals, with the number of cases and aggregate liabilities. For the Oplan Candado, next slide please. The Oplan Candado enhances voluntary compliance and increased revenue collections through the temporary closure of business establishments. And in the screen is also the number of closure orders we issued correspondingly in 2019 to 2022 with the corresponding amount paid. In the broadening of tax base, we simplified taxpayer compliance and increased the number of active registered taxpayers through the so-called tax compliance verification drive and the use of third-party information. Again, in this slide, we show that there is an increase in an average increase of around more than 300,000, or an 8% on the average 8% increase related to our registered business taxpayers. In the next slide, we have the taxpayer compliance verification drive, which addresses the erosion of income taxes arising from the use of spurious BIR Form 2307 and late non-remittance of withholding taxes, provide taxpayers additional venue to transact one-time transactions, particularly on the sale of real property subject to capital gains tax and doc stamps, anytime and anywhere, address major systems performance issues of our e-submission facility to enable to accommodate other prescribed reports, and immediately identifying and managing potential issues in frontline transactions that could give rise to taxpayer complaints and grievances. And the last slide I would like to show you is our increase in the social media presence to reach to as many taxpayers that we want to serve. We monitor our reach, and these statistics tell us in Facebook, we are in Facebook and YouTube, and it's increasing, and we want to be sure that there is a continuous expansion of this reach. And this slide indicates our initial success in the next discussion, which is the BIR digital transformation journey. The BIR digital transformation program, next slide, aims to transform the Bureau of Internal Revenue into a data-driven organization through a digitally empowered and resilient workforce, utilizing reliable, scalable, and robust digital technologies and infrastructure to innovate BIR services and elevate taxpayer experience. This program follows, next slide please, a framework with 4 pillars. And the first pillar is strengthening the BIR organization, modernizing the digital backbone of BIR, enhancing policies, governance, and standards. And the 4th pillar is elevating taxpayer experience and innovating BIR services. the digital transformation projects under each pillar. The first is strengthening the BIR organization, and this to enhance human resource capabilities and internal processes to provide highly efficient and effective administrative and support services. And this includes the organizational restructuring aligned to a digitally transformed organization, learning and capability building using BIR learning platforms, performance management and rewards recognition, personal information and administration system, property management system, and accountable forms management system. In pillar number 2, that is modernizing the digital backbone of the BIR, building and adapting a digital infrastructure that would facilitate the integration of digital technology in all areas of tax administration to continuously improve internal and external services. We have the internal revenue integrated systems, the establishment of a command center, enterprise architecture, cybersecurity policies and tools, cloud computing provisioning, use of modern tools such as development tools and big data tools, use of collaboration tools for digital workplace, application programming interface for BIR e-services. The third pillar, which is enhancing policies, governance, and standards, this reformulates and institutionalizes new BIR policies, governance, and standards to enable, support, and ensure the success of digital transformation. We'll set up data governance and data management framework with data analytics tools, document tracking and management system, cybersecurity assessment programs, electronic invoicing, receipting system, and electronic sales reporting system, enterprise risk management, monitoring and managing administrative cases. And the last pillar, that's elevating taxpayer experience and innovating BIR services. To elevate taxpayer experience through convenient, fast, and reliable online digital transactions in the areas of registration, filing, payment, audit, and enforcement. Providing excellent service for ease of doing business to all taxpayers, allowing them to experience customer delight or high level of satisfaction. We'll provide online services on complaints, appointments, feedback, tax clearance, queuing systems, electronic e-onet system, enhanced ERCs for alcohol and sweetened beverages, online registration and update system, interactive chatbot capability within our contact center, taxpayers ledger portal, TIN verifier mobile apps, e-filing system, and BIR Assist application project. Indeed, the digital transformation program will be the Bureau's most important strategy of enhancing the efficiency, productivity, and resourcefulness of our organization. In a nutshell, are our projects and undertakings under our digital transformation program that are scheduled in this roadmap. And all our endeavors of no small magnitude, but with the help of the public, they will surely be to the help of the public, that they will surely be successfully implemented. I hope, therefore, that we can look at all government agencies as the Bureau's partner in these initiatives in the service of the tax system. That is to support our digital transformation program. In many ways, this DX program seeks to make tax administration even more effective and efficient in serving the needs of the taxpayer. Its success, therefore, will redound to the benefit of the public in more ways that I can express. The past 2 years have truly been a time of challenge for all of us. Hopefully, we are now well within sight of our country's economic recovery. This is an aspiration that we all share that has motivated us through many trials. Thank you very much, distinguished members of the Senate Committee on Ways and Means, and all those present for listening. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that quite inspirational presentation. I'm a big fan of digitalization myself. So, well, again, I'll reserve my questions to later so that everyone will be given equal opportunity to present their PowerPoints. We call on Bureau of Customs, Dr. Buko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Honorable Chairman, Senator Win Gatchalian of the Committee on Ways and Means, Vice Chair, Senator Sani Angara, esteemed members of the Committee on Ways and Means, Secretary Ben Jokno, Undersecretary Tonet Chongko, fellow workers in government, good morning. Today, we will present the various breakthrough accomplishments of the Bureau of Customs in our key mission areas of collecting revenues, facilitating trade aligned with international best practices, strengthening efforts against smuggling and other customs fraud, eradicating corruption, and enhancing personnel welfare and professionalism. Next slide, please. First, on revenue collection. Next slide, please. For fiscal year 2021, the Bureau of Customs collected 643.6 billion pesos, exceeding the 616.7 billion target by 4.3%. The positive performance is attributed to the monitoring of proper declaration of values, intensified enforcement operation against illegal importations, improved compliance by traders to customs laws, gradual improvement of volume imports, and the government efforts in ensuring unhampered movement of goods domestically and internationally considering the pandemic. Likewise, collection grew by 19.7% compared to 2020. For the period January to July 2022, the Bureau of Customs collected 481.217 billion pesos, exceeding the 421.4 billion pesos target by 14.2%. The higher oil price and exchange rates, coupled with improved valuation and tariff collection, accounted for the growth in revenue by 34.1% compared to the same period last year. The percentage of collection to GDP also grew from 2.6% in 2016 to 3.8% for the first semester of 2022. Next slide. For 2020, there was a decrease in the total collection by 14.7% due to the impact of the pandemic on trade and commerce. Likewise, duties and VAT collection decreased by 11.9% and 23.8% respectively. Excise tax slightly grew due to the implementation of the train law. Duties collected grew by 18% in 2021 and 22.3% for the period January to July of 2022 due to improved valuation and correct tariff classification. Likewise, VAT is up by 18.1% in 2021 and 42.9% for the period January to July 2022. Excise tax grew by 27% in 2021. However, excise growth was slightly reduced to 24.5% due to lower import volume of excisable commodities, particularly oil. Next slide. For tax reform performance for 2018, revenue collection from train amounting to 58.549 billion pesos is 9.9% of the 593.1 billion total Bureau of Customs collection. For 2019, revenue collection from train amounting to 100.5 billion is 16% of the 630 billion total BOC collection. The revenue collection in 2019 from train grew to 71.8% compared to the 2018 collection. For 2020, revenue collection from train amounting to 109 billion pesos is 4% of the 537.6 billion pesos total Bureau of Customs collection. Compared to 2019, the train revenue collection increased to 9.2% in 2020. For 2021, revenue collection from train amounting to 133.9 billion pesos, is 20.8% of the 643 billion total Bureau of Customs collection. For 2021, the revenue collection grew by 21.92% compared to the 2020 collection. Next slide. For the non-traditional revenues, which likewise contributed to the attainment of the collection target of the Bureau's post-clearance audit verifications and investigations on importers resulted in the collection of over 6.4 billion pesos worth of customs duties, taxes, and other lawful charges since 2018, or since the post-clearance audit group was formally organized under EO 46. On the intensified fuel marking program. On the other hand, under the fuel marking program of the government, a total of 45.48 billion liters of kerosene, diesel, and gasoline were marked from September 2019 to July 2022, equivalent to 457.9 billion pesos in taxes collected. As of August 7, 2022, the BOC, BIR, and SGS have visited 6,446 locations, including retail stations and tank trucks since February 2021, of which 5,234 or 81% are fixed locations, while 1,212 or 19% are non-fixed locations. This covers 54% of 11,925 target fixed and non-fixed locations registered with the Department of Energy as of February 2021. The Bureau of Customs and the BIR have also apprehended 140,512 liters of unmarked fuel from 17 retail stations and 4 private companies. The apprehended unmarked fuel had total estimated value of 14.8 million pesos. Meanwhile, 30,356 liters of fuel have been donated to the Philippine Coast Guard as of July 8, 2022. Random field testings is based on the agreed daily field testing plan provided by SGS based on historical compliance per area and intelligence information from the BOC, BIR, and the Department of Energy. Field testing is currently conducted in Metro Manila, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Ilocos Sur, Subic, Cavite, Camarines Sur, Quezon, Leyte, Iloilo, South Cotabato, North Cotabato, Surigao del Sur, and Surigao del Norte. Next slide, please. An additional revenue amounting to 3.4 billion pesos was also collected from public auctions conducted by the Bureau of Customs. On trade facilitation, we will now discuss the efforts and programs introduced by the Bureau in enhancing the facilitation of trade. Next slide. As a background, the Philippines Trade Facilitation Score has improved under the time of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, as it ranked 3rd among 10 Southeast Asian nations. In the latest UN Global Survey on Digital and Sustainable Trade Facilitation report, the overall performance score of the Philippines rose from 80.6% in 2019 to 86.02% in 2021. Next slide, please. The World Customs Organization Mercator Program. To make the Bureau of Customs compliant with best practices in trade facilitation, the Bureau enrolled in the WCO Mercator Program in 2019. At the onset of the program, the Bureau scored a rating of 48.9% implementation maturity in August 2019. By July 2022, the BOC had already achieved a rating of 89.8% as reported by the World Customs Organization. The Bureau also spearheaded the technical working group that helps implement the National Single Window Program and the ASEAN Single Window. In 2016, only 9 trade regulatory government agencies remained actively onboarded to the National Single Window 1 program. The Bureau, under the term of President Duterte, spearheaded the technical working group that implemented the National Single Window and the ASEAN Single Window. At present, 21 TRGAs have been successfully onboarded to the TradeNet or NSW2 program as of June 2022. As to the digitization of customs processes, under the Duterte administration, 33 ICT projects and systems were developed and 91.18% or 155 out of the 170 customs processes have already been automated. These projects, which are also aligned with the Ease of Doing Business Act and the Anti-Red Tape Act, enable the Bureau to provide a more efficient and transparent delivery of government services and transactions. On May 18, 2021, EO 136 was signed creating the Philippine Trade Facilitation Committee. The PTFC is chaired by the Secretary of Finance, co-chaired by the Secretary of Trade and Industry, and vice-chaired by the Bureau of Customs. The BOC is also the Secretariat providing administrative and technical support. Since its inception, the PTFC has conducted a number of activities, including capacity building, workshops, interagency coordination, local and international discussions, among others. Next slide. Since the onset of the pandemic, the Bureau released a total of 16,190 shipments of PPEs and other medical supplies. Also, 387 shipments of COVID-19 vaccines consisting of 245,362,440 doses were facilitated as of July 2022. To efficiently facilitate trade by eliminating port and yard congestions, a total of 11,039 overstaying containers were disposed since 2016, of which 6,648 were auctioned, 4,090 were condemned, and 301 were donated to various government agencies. Moving on to the various actions of the Bureau which aim to strengthen border control. Next slide, please. From 2018 to July 2022, the Bureau has issued 388 letters of authority against various warehouses with the regulatory reports and 1,629 alert orders against shipments suspected to have violated customs laws. As a result of the Bureau's strengthened profiling and non-intrusive inspection of shipments, the BOC seized a total of 98.3 billion pesos worth of smuggled goods. The BOC, jointly operating with PDEA and PNP Drug Enforcement Group, seized a total of 17.67 billion worth of illegal drugs through its intensified profiling and non-intrusive inspection of shipments suspected to contain illegal drugs. And as part of the continuing efforts to curb the proliferation of smuggled goods, the BOC condemned 23.9 billion pesos worth of forfeited products, of forfeited smuggled goods. The BOC likewise intensified its efforts against erring brokers and importers. From 2016 to July 2022, the BOC recorded a total of 486 criminal and administrative cases filed before the Department of Justice. We also established the Customs Operations Center, which serves as a fusion center to integrate and analyze intelligence, enforcement, and operational information gathered from various sources. Improvements in our enforcement assets were also given priority with the procurement of 200 body-worn cameras, 20 units of fast patrol vessels, additional 60 X-ray machines, 16 trace detection systems, and 100 rifles. As to our other accomplishments, more than the external processes, we also firmly believe in maintaining a professional workforce. Thus, the Bureau of Customs implemented programs for integrity development and improvements in its internal and administrative processes. The Bureau also worked for the ISO certification of its units and offices. Currently, 13 ports, subports, and offices are now ISO 9001:2015 certified, while the rest are in various stages of the ISO compliance process. The BOC also enrolled in the Integrity Development Program of the World Customs Organization. During the Integrity Diagnostics Mission and Survey, the BOC received a favorable rating based on the responses from both internal and external stakeholders. As to our priority measures under the Marcos administration, the BOC drafted responsive priority measures to carry out the marching orders of the President, which are as follows. 1. Eradicate drug smuggling. Eradicate gun smuggling. 3. Eradicate agricultural smuggling. 4. Increase revenue generation. 5. Streamline and digitize customs processes. 6. Eradicate corruption and improve employee morale. These significant achievements and accomplishments were made possible through the Bureau's reform initiatives focused on people, systems innovation, infrastructure improvements, values transformation, among others. With vision, commitment, and teamwork, we remain steadfast on our track to achieve our targets as we fulfill our mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, DepCom Buko. We now call on National Treasurer Rosalia De Leon. Ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and to all the distinguished members of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. Our brief presentation will cover the updates on our 2022 financing program and debt profile, as well as our targets over the medium term. So flash on the screen for the next slide. For the next Okay, so as shown on this slide, for this year, we have downscaled our borrowing requirements to 2.2 trillion pesos from 2.5 trillion last year, as we gradually withdraw our fiscal support to a deficit of 7.6% of GDP, where we plan to secure financing at 75% from the domestic markets and 25% from diverse external markets. For the first semester of the year, we have already fulfilled 48.4% or 1.1 trillion of our financing requirements, of which 69% originated from our domestic issuances and 31% from various external sources. To support our program deficit and refinancing requirements, we plan to fulfill the remainder of our financing on a 80-20 domestic to external funding split and achieve our full-year blend of 75% domestic and 20% offshore funding. While our debt settled at 62.1% of GDP as of the second quarter of 2022, our debt remains eminently sustainable and resilient to external shocks. Our heavy reliance on domestic financing has led to the redomination of our debt towards 69.7% in domestic currency and 30.3% in foreign currencies in 2021 and 68.5% domestic versus 31.5% foreign as of June 2022. This has allowed our debt servicing to be less vulnerable to foreign exchange volatilities. Furthermore, because of our conscious practice of stretching our maturity, our debt portfolio provides sufficient time to expand our revenue base and our economy before principal payments fall due the tenor composition of our debt remains mainly in the medium to long tenors. Moreover, only 11.1% of our debt, as shown by the latest figures, are on variable interest rate terms, minimizing our exposure to interest rate resetting in light of the interest rate normalizations observed locally and abroad. Going over to our indicative medium-term program, we intend to downscale further the deficit to 6.1% of GDP in 2023, 5.1% in 2024, and 4.1% in 2025, in line with our concerted efforts to rebuild our fiscal credentials. Our financing requirements will amount to 2.2 trillion in 2023, 2.4 trillion in 2024, and 2.1 trillion in 2025, where 75% of our borrowings for 2023 and 2024 will be sourced from domestic markets as part of our prudent debt management strategy and our initiatives to further develop our domestic capital markets. As with many emerging market economies, we have seen a significant deterioration in our debt ratio over the past 2 years, with the debt already crossing the acceptable threshold of 60% in 2021 and remaining so for the next 2 years. However, owing to the factors discussed earlier that render our debt stock resilient, our debt remains eminently sustainable and should peak at 62% of GDP this year, then gradually decline to 61.1% in 2023, 60.2% in 2024, and 58.5% in 2025. Furthermore, using the concept of general government debt, which nets out our intra-government debt holdings and is the preferred metric among credit rating agencies, our debt remains below the median of our ASEAN neighbors and credit rating peers and can be expected to remain fairly stable at 54.5% this year, 54.1% in 2023, 54% in 2024, and 53.4% in 2025. Finally, we emphasize that our ability to preserve our debt at below average and around the median has helped us safeguard our sovereign ratings amidst the sea of downgrades after the significant rise in government public debt observed when the pandemic unfolded. That ends my short presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Treasurer Leah. We call on Assistant Secretary Jovi Danofrata of the FIRB.
Mr. Chair, we did not prepare our specific presentation for CREATE. The Secretary, I believe, has already made a general report on CREATE. However, we would be ready to, if there are specific questions regarding the FIRB.
All right, then we'll just call on you during the Q&A. Executive Director Marlene Kalubag of the National Tax Research Center.
Morning, sir. I don't have a presentation for this morning, sir. As NTRCS and the tax agency of the Department of Finance, we defer to the DOF regarding the certain data and information presented. But the National Tax Research Center is supportive of all the policy directions of the Department of Finance. And we provide them with inputs to the different tax bills. In fact, in 2021, we were able to comment on about 100 or more bills. And we provide that to the department as our input to their official position. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I'll open the floor now to any questions from our senators. But I think a lot of our senators have their videos turned off. So I'll start off. There, Senator Sani.
I thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few questions for our resource persons. Thank you for the chance. And once again, I'd like to greet Secretary Ben, Treasurer Leah, Commissioner Lilia, DEPCOM Lumagi and DEPCOM Buko, and the other USEC Juvie also, and the USEC Tonet. and the team of the DOF, and it's been very difficult. So I think we should thank you for holding down the fort during very difficult an economic period of economic downturn. No? So my first question is regarding the FIRB. Um, it's newly constituted or constituted with new powers rather under the CREATE law. I'm wondering if we have given any incentives already under the new regime of CREATE, Mr. Chairman.
If I may respond, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, under CREATE, for the FIRB, projects or activities that are amounting to 1 billion, more than 1 billion, the board of the FIRB is empowered to grant incentives, in which case from April 2021 up to June 30, 2022, there are 14 projects that have been granted incentives already, Mr. Chair. And the amount is around 400 billion pesos.
That's the amount of the investment, 400 billion.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Is the money already in, or is that's a pledge or a commitment, Mr. Chairman?
We have an interim monitoring. I have to check, Mr. Chair. Some of it are already in, while some of it will still be starting. It depends on the start of commercial operation or the SCO, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, maybe we can just be given details of the investments coming
Yes,
in.
Mr. Chair.
What industries and what is the amount already
Activities.
put in, and what's the expected period for the rest of the 400 billion? Is that the
Yes,
figure?
yes.
Yeah, just
Yes,
so I
Mr.
don't
Chair.
delay the hearing further, I just want to ask for that information,
Yes,
Mr.
we will
Chair.
provide, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Yusek Juvie.
Mr. Chairman,
Uh,
with the permission of Senator Angara, just a
uh,
follow-up question.
yes,
Would
yes,
that be
okay,
okay? Yeah,
okay, okay.
totally in line with your question. No? And I defer, of course, to both the chairman of the Committee on Finance, Senator Angara, and the chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means. But I wonder if it would be beneficial for us to have maybe even just a briefing, not a hearing, to include the other secretaries of the economic team, no? Kasi my follow-up question would have been like, what efforts are being made, diba? We passed CREATE in 2021 na yata natin napasa, pero obviously there were high hopes, no, to bring in new businesses, and malamang pag tinanong natin dito yon, mapapasa din yan sa Department of Trade. So baka we could it's just a suggestion na we get a briefing from the whole team para we can look at the whole picture. Yun lang, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Thank you, Senator. Yeah,
I
thank you,
think that's a
Senator
good idea.
Pia. Yeah, it's a good idea. And Senator Pia was the chairperson of the Committee on Ways and Means when CREATE was passed. No, so she's very familiar with the intricacies of the law. We'll take your suggestion. I'll coordinate with Senator Angara and the other economic related committees to request for an economic briefing from the economic managers.
Thank you. Kasi and just to add na lang, syempre as the author sponsor of CREATE, which you all know was highly debated. When I read things in the news na i-amend na kaagad, it's a bit disturbing kasi we want to give it a chance to work, obviously, right? And it can only work. Obviously, it's in principle. No, we put what we thought the pillars of the tools that are needed. But we want to give it a chance to work. So the briefing will help us defend this further, or if it comes from the secretaries themselves that they need some amendments, then we're also here naman to listen to them, di ba? Yun lang naman. Thank you, Senator Angara, for allowing me to intervene.
Yes, thank you. Definitely, I think that was former Chair Pia did a very good job in shepherding that law. So I think we should give it a chance to work. I totally agree on the briefing as well, Mr. Chairman. Going back to the other questions, I was wondering about the amnesty. There was no figures, wala masyadong figures regarding the amnesty. Has the thinking of the DOF changed regarding, because as we know, the one-third of that law, I think one-third or one-half of that law was vetoed, no? Yung per portion on general amnesty. So what remained was the I think the estate tax. I'm not sure. I can't recall anymore about the delinquencies, no. But definitely the general amnesty portion was vetoed. and I'm sure there were reasons. But maybe we can ask the Sec Ben, what is the thinking on this? Because it worked enormously or it was an enormous success in Indonesia, where a lot of the assets returned, no? Especially from Singapore and other countries. So I'm just wondering what their thinking is on this matter.
May I ask Yusek Chionko to answer that? Okay.
Go ahead,
Um,
Yusek.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, as regards to general tax amnesty, the DOF actually supports a tax amnesty. However, we want the safeguards to be put into the law itself. Problem with the bills at the time was that, you know, they were overly broad, which basically left the BIR with little or no powers anymore to check. I mean, it was all basically under um, the within the will of the taxpayer, and there were
It was
not
too
enough
one-sided, is what you're
safeguards.
saying,
Yeah, it was
Mr.
too
Chair, Yusek.
one-sided the way it was drafted at the time. But provided that there are proper safeguards, then we are willing to still consider a general tax amnesty, provided the safeguards are there.
Okay, that's great to hear. Maybe that's something, Mr. Chair, that the committee can look into down the road, especially if to shore up our revenue collection. Uh, Regarding the BOC presentation on 90% automation, I'm wondering what are the 15 processes which have not yet been automated? Again, pwede na lang i-submit ito, Mr. Chair, para hindi tayo tumagal.
We will submit, Mr. Chair.
And then lastly, of course, not too many questions because our officials have just started a new term, so we'll give them a chance to perform. And again, we came from a very difficult period, but maybe just to reassure that there have been a lot of speculation regarding our debt, regarding with the cases of Sri Lanka and some of these downgrades. Maybe some reassurance from our finance officials, economic managers, that we will not go that way, and that the debt is still at a manageable level at around 63% of debt to GDP. Maybe we can hear something to that effect, Mr. Chair.
Well, I can assure you, Your Honor, that we won't go the Sri Lanka way. We're very careful in our borrowings. In fact, as the treasurer said, I think most of our debt are long-term, and Secretary Dominguez has been very good in making sure that we borrow at the lowest possible interest rate, and it's spread out. So, plus, I think what you've done, because you have strengthened the tax system, I think we should be able to service whatever we borrowed down the road. So I can assure you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, that in fact, that is the purpose of that medium-term fiscal framework, to make sure that we don't go the Sri Lanka way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the last point is I do meet occasionally with business groups and businessmen, and just one small complaint of theirs is that parang pag may shortfall, parang sila lagi, it's the same guys daw who are hit kasi nga sila yung kumbaga suki sila. So maybe that's something we can revisit. Maybe that was a pandemic strategy. Yung iba nagbayad ng 1 year in advance, etc. Pero yung iba sabi nila, bakit sila daw yung paulit-ulit na tinatamaan, especially kung may kakulangan dito sa collection. So yun lang, just to put that on record, and perhaps, of course, it's a challenge. I know it's a challenge for our tax authorities to widen the tax base. It's a continuing challenge, but of course, kami naman dito tutulong po. Salamat po, Mr. Chairman, sa oras. And
Okay.
again, thank you to our finance officials, finance team.
Senator Angara, Commissioner Guillermo wants to respond to that
Yes.
comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Senator. I've been hearing those complaints also. Audits are suspended now. We are thinking of ways of choosing taxpayers for audit on a risk-based criteria. And at that, it will be released on an automated way. So the computer will choose which taxpayers to audit based on risk-based and benchmarking data.
Oh, that's good to hear. Thank you. Salamat, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
In fact, Mr. Chairman, the hallmark of a good tax system is that it should be perceived as fair. Okay, so there will be no friends or foes. We just let the computer choose who will be audited. Okay, thank you.
Salamat, salamat, Sec. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you, Senator Angara. Senator Binay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and magandang umaga po sa ating lahat, sa lahat ng ating resource persons, and congratulations, Secretary, all the newly appointed economic team, especially to Secretary Joc, no? Siguro, it was mentioned kanina, you've filed cases, whether it's Bureau of Customs or BIR. Ano na ho ba yung success rate natin when it comes to winning cases against yung mga cases filed by BIR or Bureau of Customs?
We call on Commissioner Guillermo and then later on to DEPCOM Buko to answer that question.
I presented a while ago our statistics on rate cases that run after tax evaders. And some are in the courts, Court of Tax Appeals, and you know fully well how it's quite long to really see the success rates of this. In the past, I don't have the figures now, but there are success rates that taxpayers are held criminally liable on their evasion cases, and some are on administrative cases. And I don't have the figures now, but I can give you the historical success rates. A while ago, I gave you the numbers that are still pending in the courts.
If I understand Senator Binay correctly, just to put it simply, I think we can just measure it as how many cases filed, how many cases were successful, or how many were prosecuted, and how many were convicted, and then how much were collected. Because at the end of the day, we also want to collect, if there's a possibility of collection. So, Commissioner, please submit to us in that form, and
Yes.
also historically.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Siguro, Mr. Chairman, meron ho ba silang parang big fish na convicted out of the filed cases?
We will submit, Your Honor, the amount and the big fish.
So Commissioner, offhand, wala ko kayo matandaan ngayon na
Do you have-
convicted.
Eh, eh,
Bago lang ho ako, hindi ko pa natanong ho kung sino yung big fish.
Okay. Sige, Mr. Chairman, for submission na lang. And sa Bureau of Customs?
Also with the same with the Bureau of Customs, Your Honor, I don't have the record as of now, but the case we filed are pending. Some are pending in with courts, and some are with the Department of Justice. But with regards to the agricultural smuggling, we have filed cases against smugglers of rice, and these smugglers are now in jail because of the agricultural smuggling because of the law, considering it as economic sabotage. So it's non-bailable. So we have cases to that effect, Your Honor. We will submit also the report, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kasi 'di ba parang may impression na hindi siya na yung kumbaga hindi nagiging deterrent kasi nga wala naman nako-convict. So yun lang, madaling mag-file pero yung actual conviction parang doon ata tayo may kakulangan, Mr. Chairman. Okay, moving to another topic. This was not discussed by Chairman Guillermo. Yung collections lang po from Pogo. Pwede po bang ma-explain?
May I ask medyo na-miss ata yung collections from Pogo because, yeah, I'm sorry about that. Can you please, I have some figures on the collections from Pogo. Slide number 11. This one, in 2019, with the enactment of, in 2019 and 2020, BIR was able to collect 6.42 and 7.18 billion from POGOs through close monitoring of their compliance by a task force on POGO operations. Collection in 2021 decreased to 3.91 billion, mainly due to the gambling crackdown of the Chinese government and a temporary restraining order issued by the Supreme Court on the implementation of various revenue issuances on POGOs that affected collections up to the third quarter of 2021. Revenue collections from POGOs started to pick up in the fourth quarter of 2021. A final gaming tax equivalent to 5% of gross gaming revenues is imposed, as well as a 25% final withholding tax on salaries of foreign nationals, or 12,500 per person per month, whichever is higher. Latest figures show that 1.55 billion was collected from the POGOs for the first quarter of 2022.
Commissioner, when we passed kasi yung Pogo tax law, ang projection was 32 billion. Parang ang layo for 2022. I don't know if I'm citing the correct amount, Senator Pia Cayetano or Chairman before for Ways and Means. Parang ito yung projection, and we've only collected 1.55 billion for
For the first
2020
quarter,
for
yeah.
the first quarter. So parang ang layo ho, and when we pass this law, 'di ba may earmarking ho to eh. So important that we collect dahil ginagamit to for universal healthcare, for facilities enhancement fund. So may
Actually,
explanation ho ba kayo kung what cost?
Madam, Your Honor, I was informed that really Pogo operations declined because of the COVID, and but now I'm also informed that it's picking up. We will give you the latest figure for the second quarter. Yeah. Yung crackdown po rin at saka the gambling crackdown of the Chinese government and a temporary restraining order issued by the Supreme Court. I think that's the reasons for law collections on POGO operations.
Sige, Mr. Chairman, siguro for submission na lang if you have new
New figures.
revenue targets for POGO tax collections. Yun lang po, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Maraming salamat po.
We will do that.
Thank you. Thank you. The former chairperson of the Ways and Means Committee, who also passed the POGO bill, we recognize Senator Pia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have a 12 noon appointment, so I will make this very brief. I know that I can take the opportunity to get more answers to my questions at a later time, whether through a hearing or a briefing anyway. So I'll just make this very quick. I had the same question about the POGO, and I do understand that that targets probably were not met because of the COVID. So, but I've also heard reports that there were businesses that were coming in. So, same question as Senator Nancy. No, maybe if there's nothing beyond that, then let's just be updated. Maybe even quarterly, just even send us a report so that we know. And then on create, and this question again might be better addressed by the team. No, when we do have a briefing from all of them, I really wanted to know if there are any efforts being made to target certain types of industries, because that's what we talked about. We talked about having a base of manufacturing, whether these were commodities that are consumable in the country, that works both ways. Right? It brings in income, but it creates a lot of jobs. But on the other hand, we also talked about and incentivized innovations, no, innovative products, and especially during the time of during this pandemic. Again, it was revealed that we could do well if we focused on science and technology, research and development, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if there's this team can provide that answer, but that's why I think the briefing with the whole economic team might be very important. Um, Now, these are the questions. And then one last comment, and then I'll just ask two specific questions. I just like to make a brief observation about the ukay-ukay issue. Um, it is banned by law, but it has been around for, I think, almost two.
Senator Pia. Senator Pia. I think she got cut. We'll go back to her later on when she resumes online. Senator Binay, any more questions?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Hindi, doon lang sa yung digitalization program ng BIR. 'Di ba meron sila yung last slide nila is yung path. May corresponding budget na ba sila for this?
May I respond, Mr.
Go
Chair?
ahead, Commissioner.
For 2020 to 2023, the corresponding budgets for the projects that are are approved, but not yet for 2024 up to 2020, 2030. The 2023, we placed the budgets for those in the budget for 2023. And I was informed that the secretary approved the infrastructure program of this digitalization project.
Okay. That's good to know po. At least funding is not a problem for you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. While we're waiting for Senator Pia to resume her questions, I'll have a few more questions, no, other than the questions that our senators have already given earlier. This is on the topic of corruption and taxpayers' welfare. And I'll be honest, and let's call a spade a spade. I've been following some news reports coming from different government agencies. And on October 28, 2020, DOJ Secretary Menardo Guevara identified 5 government agencies that are highly prone to corruption. And number 3 is BOC. Number 4 is BIR. On March 31, 2021, in the Laging Handa briefing, PACC Chairman Greco Belica also identified agencies that are problematic based on their reports. Number 2 is BIR. Number 3 is BOC. And in a report coming from ARTA, complaints that they have received on June 10, this is a report issued on June 10, 2021. The highest number of the agency that has the highest number of complaints is number 1 BIR and number 6 customs, no, among the 12 identified, no. So let's call a spade a spade. I think alam naman natin to, this is an open secret. And in the past many years, when you talk about issues of corruption, controversy, taxpayer welfare, and taxpayer grievances, customs and BIR will be on the top of the list. And now that we are turning a new leaf under this new administration, every new administration is an opportunity to redeem and also to institute reforms. So may I ask the DOF, headed by Secretary Diokno, and also the two major collection agency or major collecting agencies. 90% of our collection comes from the BIR and customs. May I ask the Secretary, the Commissioner, and DEPCOM, what are the reforms that you will be instituting in order to improve the image and improve the rank, well, not improve the ranking, but to eliminate, to remove your name in the list of controversial agencies, because these are from other agencies who also receive complaints, no? And they were tasked to investigate and to look into this matter. So may I ask you, what are the reforms that you'll be instituting? Hopefully in the next 3 years, maybe 6 years, your names will not be in this list. Instead, your names will be in the top performing, most admired government agencies in our nation. So may I ask,
Let me make
Yeah.
a general statement and then I'll pass it on to both agencies. I think digitalization will really be the key here. And I think, to be fair with both agencies, they have done a lot already during the past administration. And in fact, what we can promise is we'll do even better. Okay. So, Delia?
Mr. Chair, I accepted this job because I was with the Bureau of Internal Revenue for the last, before I went to DBM and BSP, I was in the Bureau of Internal Revenue. And when the secretary told me to join him in the OF as the commissioner, I said yes, because we wanted to really change the image of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, and that is through digitalization. And digital, for me, I'm not only thinking of the digital transformation, but also moral transformation of the people by giving them more ways of making themselves more professional, webinars on for trainings, improving the type of trainings that this the staff. I was quite surprised of this, no, that BIR is still number 1 or in the first 5, no. I thought that it has improved because I know that online services are really being given. During the past 6 years, I was not there. So I saw that maybe they need more trainings, no, and more seminars, and maybe we will have to rotate people. Under the law, we can rotate people if they are there in their jurisdictions for more than 3 years, and we will see to it the combination of digitalization, of course, change management. They will have to embrace technology, and a lot of trainings will have to be given to the staff of the BIR, and a lot of doing things differently now with the use of technology is another matter. So really, we will see to it that it will be mandatory for our people to change the ways of doing business. And we also would want, I have been meeting many associations, we also would want the tax-paying public to cooperate with us. Because if we do give online services to them, at least they will also have to prepare their organizations to do submit to us in soft copies, submit to us the systems that they have will, like the electronic receipts and electronic invoices. There are still taxpayers who wouldn't, they say they're not ready and things like that. Therefore, we want also the tax-paying public to be digitalized, not only BIR, but it's really an integration or interface with them. The practitioners, we call on the practitioners to see to it that we have the same interpretations of the updated laws, because sometimes the issue or the challenge is they have different interpretations, and therefore our people in the BIR will really have to be trained well on the new issuances. I saw that to be a gap. No, trainings were not very much, but in the area of webinars now, it's very easy to mandate such courses, both the technical courses as well as the value formation courses. So the objective of me, my personal objective of really accepting the job is really to change the image of the BIR. And we hope that we will be successful with our new team, with our new deputy commissioners and the new staff. I know that 6 years will not be enough, but the start will be there. We will start.
Commissioner, may we ask DEPCOM Buko for his response?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Mr. Chair, it's the dream or the mission of every commissioner to eradicate corruption and improve the image of the Bureau of Customs. No? So we are one of the first agencies to implement our paperless transactions, wherein our stakeholders transact with us online. So there are no more physical or face-to-face transactions in the Bureau of Customs as of now, unlike before. So it started before the start of the pandemic, actually. So very timely, Mr. Chair. And also we have enrolled in various integrity enhancement and moral transformation programs. So as mentioned by our dear Secretary, that digitization is really the solution. No? So as I have reported before, 91% of our processes are already automated. So that's one of the solutions, Mr. Chair. And also we have enrolled to the performance governance system program. No? And we have garnered Gold Blazer Awards in that program. And in fact, as to our trust rating among stakeholders, the trust rating improved a lot. No? So we will just continue to improve and enhance our processes, Mr. Chair. And as to the practices of our personnel, we have been filing a lot of administrative cases already and penalized them. In fact, there were some dismissals already, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, DEPCOM. It seems to me that digitalization is a common theme across the DOF. No, I've seen it in the presentation of Secretary Diokno, presentation Commissioner Guillermo, presentation DEPCOM Buko. This seems to me the direction the DOF is taking to improve customer experience as well as reduce and eliminate corruption. With that, is a contactless approach possible? Because I was given an opportunity to visit the Customs Administration of Singapore. It's truly contactless. Talagang walang tao, and I was surprised. No, in fact, I thought I was in the wrong building, but they told me that's the customs building. Wala talagang tao. And in fact, their policy there is really transact with government through online, because we all know once you have face-to-face dealings, corruption will happen. That's a given fact already. I experienced that in City Hall, and it's very common. No? So across the collection agencies is a no contact, zero contact talaga, no? I mean, in its true form. Is that possible?
Mr. Chair, that is very possible, Mr. Chair. In fact, we have also visited a lot of customs administrations worldwide, no? Because we are also a member of the World Customs Organization, and we have seen and observed their processes there. So as of now, we are in that direction, no, of becoming a totally contactless customs administration. So in fact, we have a customs modernization, no, in line, sponsored by the World Bank. So presently, the filing of entries or the processing of the releases of goods are automated already. But ang inaano lang namin ngayon, Mr. Chair, is that despite of the full automation, may mga gaps pa rin na nakikita kami. Kasi meron pa ring mga tawagan sa telepono, ganun. So despite the fact that it's already automated. But very possible po yung ang scenario that it will be totally contactless.
In that case, if we go to customs, the only people we will see are the customs employees, not the brokers, not
Yes.
the consignees, not the even the truckers.
Yes,
Ganun ba?
yes, Mr. Chair. So
Yung aso lang na sinabi ni Senator
Yes,
Tulfo,
sir.
anong pangalan ng aso na yun?
Bantay.
Si Bantay,
Oo.
Parang famous yata si Bantay. Maraming alam
Yes,
si
Mr.
Bantay.
Chair. In fact, we would like to invite you, Mr. Chair, and other members of the committee to visit the Bureau of Customs office
Yeah.
to see for yourselves the actual situation in customs now.
Thank you. Is that possible,
Yeah.
Commissioner? A zero contact concept?
In the long run, it will be possible, sir. We really have to develop the systems that will handle it. Actually, with the COVID, with the pandemic, there's no contact. And one of the things I learned from the Banco Central is our bank examiners really examine the books of accounts of the bank without any contact. It's really online, and maybe some Zoom meetings will happen. And then our large taxpayer service really asked for a briefing from the Banco Central how they did this no contact examination, sir. And they're learning this for the large taxpayers. For the medium and the small taxpayers, we still have to do it, because also a no contact means that the other end is also digitized, no? That's the challenge we have. Not all taxpayers are digitized. Therefore, we really have to brief them and talk with them, integrate our systems with them. And the e-receipts and e-invoice is a start of a no contact on getting actually the receipts. And because during their VAT investigation they wanted this, no? But if the electronic receipts will be available, then again a no contact is possible.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Senator Binay.
Hindi kasi na-mention nga yung sa small and medium enterprises. Alam naman ho din natin na madami dito, lalong-lalo na din sa small, yung walang access to technology. Meron na ho ba tayong siguro long-term plan how we can also make it inclusive to them, itong path towards digitalization of BIR?
May I? Okay. There is a plan. In fact, we talk with the DTI, Department of Trade and Industry, on MSMEs, because the complaint is that how come BIR is requiring documents the same way as the small and the large taxpayers. Therefore, we will have a project where the micro and small enterprise, small businesses will have a different way of registering and different requirements that we will ask from them differently from the medium or the large taxpayers. We will do that, and because we will streamline processes and streamline requirements. Therefore, a mere email perhaps of contacting the small, because the cell phone is one way where, or we will now require an email with the taxpayers, because it's easy now to get emails, no? Therefore, we are in that process, and in fact, we wanted to pilot some areas wherein we can segment the businesses into micro and small businesses, and pilot our new ways of contacting micro and small versus the medium and the large.
Actually, Commissioner, I don't know if it's under BIR or DTI. Meron na ho kayang study kung ilan dito sa mga micro or small ang may access to a laptop or a tablet? Meron na ho bang ganong pag-aaral?
Maybe, I don't know. Wala ho, pero for sure, kahit naman ho yung ating mga kasambahay has access to such the gadgets, no? Kasi hindi na ho siya mahal. Therefore, it will be very easy for the small, the owners of these small businesses have access to such, I suppose, no?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, in one of the budget hearings, ang naging suggestion nga ho natin, di ba meron tayong mga Go Negosyo Centers in almost LGUs? Baka pwede doon mag-provide sila siguro ng computer kung saan itong mga micro and small entrepreneurs natin would have access to technology. Maybe baka isang programa yan na pwedeng i-explore ng DTI and BIR. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Nancy.
Mr.
But
Chair,
yes,
can I ask
Senator.
just one
Yes,
related
go ahead.
question with
Go
your
ahead,
permission,
Senator.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman? Oo. Nabanggit kasi yung MSMEs. Just two questions or a request for information rather. I remember since we're talking about MSMEs, dun sa train law, one of the innovations for the MSMEs was to give them the option to elect whether to pay a percentage of their gross, a smaller percentage of the gross, or percentage of the net income, because given the wide range of MSMEs, those engaged in low margin activities would prefer it off the bottom line, whereas those more professionals would prefer it off the top line. So we have that option. I just forget the numbers right now. Could I just get the figures as to how many MSMEs or which was the preferred alternative, the top line or the bottom line, the gross or the net? I'll ask for that data from the DOF and the BIR. And the second, Mr. Chair, is yung discussion on MSMEs. One of the things that we put in the customs modernization to facilitate doing business was the 10,000 peso minimum, meaning under 10,000 pesos for commercial samples. Like if an entrepreneur is sending a commercial sample to China or whatever, or receiving something, wala nang bayad yon. So I'm wondering if this provision is being enforced sa Bureau of Customs. That's a provision of the CMTA or the Customs Modernization Law, Mr. Chair.
DepSec?
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, sir,
DepCom.
we are implementing that, sir. It's called the de minimis
De minimis, yeah, the de
system.
minimis,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, sir. We're implementing that, sir.
Sige. Okay, very
Thank you,
good.
sir.
Thank you.
Maybe,
Then yung sa BIR naman, pa-request na lang po yung datos, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, maybe request for the request was to give us data on which was the preferred payment scheme of MSMEs, whether it's on gross or net. No? Yeah.
Yes, Your
Pakisagot na
Honor.
lang po. Yeah. And just to finish the topic of the zero contact or no contact concept, sa local government, ganyan rin po na experience namin with building permits. That's why I'll show you a picture that we developed in Valenzuela para no contact na. So those who want to apply, those who are applying for building permit, it's a kiosk type system which is i-deposit lang nila yung plano nila and they don't talk to any engineer, whether it's civil engineer or mechanical engineer or electrical engineer. They don't talk to anyone because we've found out that the engineers may mga alaga sila and they also perform the actual drawing and they certify their own drawings. No, so this is a small innovation that we made in Valenzuela to eliminate contact. You only have contact. Actually, even payment no contact na because we instituted the virtual payments na rin, like GCash and all that. No, so just to share with everyone. Before I continue, I see Senator Pia. Senator Pia. Are you still online, Senator Pia?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there, yeah. You were cut off when you were explaining
Yeah.
ukay-ukay.
I was talking to myself for the next 2 minutes. Anyway, very quickly, Mr. Chairman, because I do have a 12 meeting which I stepped out of for this. No, I was just saying about the ukay-ukay. I agree that it's time to revisit that policy. But as your chairman of the Committee on Sustainable Development, I'd like to point out two things. No, on the one side, it addresses SDG number 8, which is decent work. No, madaming nabubuhay sa pagbebenta ng ukay-ukay, and it ends up to be a product very useful to a lot of people. Secondly, it is really a responsible consumption because instead of producing new products, so that's SDG number 12, instead of producing new products, you're able to reuse these products. And it's actually a thing now, no? Even influencers are very into pre-loved, no? They sell their pre-loved items and a lot of people buy pre-loved. My kids love pre-loved items. So that's the plus side. On the downside, I've seen a documentary where these ukay-ukay products are literally clogging rivers in some African countries. Like it's really, really bad because parang nahahalo dyan sa ukay-ukay. Some are usable and some are just really garbage, and so they end up clogging, like not usable at all. They end up clogging the river. So on that note, I support the call for revisiting, but we really have to have a full blown hearing on this. And maganda din yung sinabi nyo, Mr. Chairman, na yun nga, from your experience, these are vendors who actually pay for their permits to sell, no, even right in front of City Hall and in the plazas and all that. So it's a valid concern that we need to look into. The other thing I wanted to mention, again, from an SDG sustainable and from a comprehensive outlook, I know as a general rule, DOF is against exemptions. I understand that. I chair the committee, so I understand. But what I would like to ask Secretary and the team is, can we get your quick opinion? But can we also be assured of the departments looking at these issues holistically? Because I'll give you a specific example. The president in his SONA included the need for specialty hospitals in other parts of the country, and I support that. I have a bill on that. But for the most efficient way to do that is to attach these specialty services to existing regional hospitals instead of building new ones. Okay. But on that note, on the tax issue, my question is: would the department be at least willing to consider limited time for a tax-free, duty-free, VAT-free importation of medical equipment, because you cannot put up these specialty hospitals without this specialty equipment. So parang, it's like, anyway, it is what it is. So may I get a quick response on that, Mr. Chairman?
We will consider that, the equipment for the specialty hospitals. Okay.
Okay, that was short, but good enough for now, because I do know the previous positions of DOF in not just the last administration in general. But my point, Secretary, is I'd like the assurance that your team will always look into the comprehensive impact of these things. I'm not one to just recommend an exemption, having been the chairman, but I also want all the departments to work together for a comprehensive and consistent program or output, because otherwise parang it contradicts, di ba?
Just as I said, we will consider the importation of equipment as an exception to the rule
Okay.
for specialty hospitals. Okay.
Thank you. Well, actually, Mr. Chairman, I'll just to expand that. I use the example of specialty hospitals, no, but any advocate for health will agree that the most important aspect that we focus on is basic health care. So, although I use the example of the President Sona mentioning specialty hospitals, therefore I linked it to the specialty equipment. The most basic are still the most important, like X-rays, etc., etc. Anyway, no need for a reply on that. And my last question, and unfortunately, given my own time constraints, is with regards to syntax. Now, nakat ba ako doon when I asked that question earlier?
No,
I
no,
posted
go
it.
ahead. You're coming in clear. Yeah.
So I know I had posted earlier, but maybe I was already cut when I asked the question. It was simply I just wanted to know because I think I read something in the early days of the secretary's appointment that they will be reviewing sin tax rates. Tama ba? And just want to know for any of the sin products if this being reviewed or no changes for now or what.
No, we will not review the. We said we're lucky that we inherited a superior tax system than what Duterte inherited from the previous one, and so we will focus initially on tax administration.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. That's it for now. Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. Just to go back on the POGO, no, because my staff provided me with information. Senator Binay is actually on the spot. In June 2, 2021, when we were debating the POGO bill, the estimates that BIR and DOF gave the Senate is on 2019, the estimated collection will be 38 billion, 2020, 36 billion, 2021, 32 billion, and this year, 36 billion. But obviously, the targets were way off. No, in 2019, 6 billion, in 2020, 7 billion, 2021, 3 billion, 2022, 1 billion. Of course, the new law only came about September of 2021, no? But it's still, the 36 billion estimate this year is far off from the 1.5 collection. So we will have another separate hearing on oversight on this law. And just as an advance notice to just provide us and start collating information about the POGO activities. And we will also call on PAGCOR on that oversight hearing so that we will have a full view on the POGO industry now and in the future because that affects collection also. So just to put that on record.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Senator
Hindi,
Binay.
tsaka siguro just to add, hindi pwedeng i-excuse dito kasi because of COVID. 'Di ba? When we passed that law, naka-input na dun sa binigay nilang forecast sa atin ang COVID dahil 2021 yan eh. So parang ano na tayo, on the first year of COVID yan, 'di ba? So yun lang po, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Binay. On a separate topic, which is the work from home policy. Now, this is actually a policy that has been quite in the internet and in the news. The expiration will be this year, September 20, 2022.
September 12, 2022, Mr. Chair.
September 12, 2022.
Which also coincides with the declaration by the President on the state of emergency. And that actually is the basis for the provision to to activate the provision or to use the provision under the temporary measures under CREATE that allowed them the work from home arrangement.
Well, two questions. What if the declaration will not be lifted? Because it seems to me that for prudence sake, the declaration of state of health emergency might be continued. Might lang. Will this work from home arrangement be extended as well, if that is the reasoning?
We would have to take it up. I'm not sure if the chair of the technical committee of the FIRB is here, Yusectonet. But all the policy decisions are taken up in the board, in which case they would discuss and deliberate on the basis for which each of the policies would have to be granted. In this case, again, Mr. Chair, we are basing it on the issuance of the Office of the President. And that is I think that's the end, September 12.
Yun na nga, but what if it's extended? Huh? What if it's extended? Will this arrangement be extended as well?
We will take it up with the board, Mr. Chair, and again, weigh the merits of the situation, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. My second question is, we're talking about digitalization the whole morning, no? And the whole world is digitalizing right now, and work from home arrangement is becoming a norm rather than an exception, no? In many cases, and it's more practical. It saves gasoline, especially to a country like ours who imports almost close to 100% of our gasoline. Saves us from traffics, improves quality of life because we spend more time with families. And the rise of the digital nomads, no, as they say, is now coming into reality. Looking ahead, is the department looking at making work from home an acceptable norm in giving out incentives? Because this is, from my understanding and looking at the trends right now, it's becoming a norm. No? It's becoming the trend right now. And we just have to accept that it's more economical to do this in many ways. And I am, my opinion on this is we should already embrace this type of work arrangement, no? And include this in our consideration for incentives in the future. No? So I'd like to get some response from the department if the department is also embracing this concept.
Mr. Chair, the department is also in favor of the work from home arrangement because you're right, it's good. There's less traffic and everything. The problem that arises is as regards PPOs that are registered with the PESA. The issue is only with them because the PESA law and also the CREATE law is very specific in that it says that if you're registered with the PESA and enjoying the PESA incentives, you have to be located inside the zone. That's the problem. So what we did was, because there are provisions in the CREATE law that allowed for certain things to be suspended, like the fact that they will work in the zone, we use that. However, the basis that the FIRB board used was the state of emergency. But other than that, the issue really is that the law is quite specific in that it says you have to be located and doing your work inside the zone. That's a problem. But if the BPO is not registered with the PESA, let's say it's registered with the BOI, there's no geographical limitation, in which case that's fine. They can still enjoy the CREATE incentives. It's just that because it's zone, it's very specific, then that issue comes up. But as a general rule, work from home is fine. It's just that there is that limitation for PESA.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Senator Binay.
Paano kung hybrid? Katulad ho kami sa Senate, sometimes yung session ho namin pwedeng hybrid, or even this committee hearing hybrid. Pwede rin ho ba yan doon sa PESA? Or
Could
hindi
I say
pa rin sila
something on
magiging,
this?
or hindi pa rin sila
Let
magiging
me make a
compliant?
contribution here. I think work from home is not synonymous with digitalization, okay? Because there are some activities or some businesses that are, you can't do it work from home, okay? For example, classes, you have to, the face-to-face is still superior to work from home, okay? So there are some businesses where you can adopt work from home, but not for all, okay? Military service, you can't do that to work from home. Factory activities, producing sardines, you can do that work from home, okay? So it's not synonymous with, but I'm personally, I'm big on digitalization. I made that very clear when I was central bank governor. I want in fact, I want a cashless society. So digitalization, payment through. But you know, I can tell you this: some local governments, I'm proud of you what you have done, so faceless. But some local governments do not like that. Yung digital payments. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone who wants to respond to the query of Senator Binay on hybrid?
Siguro, Mr. Chairman, specifically to BPOs.
You said?
Okay, the right now what we have is 70%, 70-30. 70, what is allowed by the FIRB is 70% in the zone and 30% outside. That is akin to complying with the export. And again, this is a technical argument. That's akin to complying with the export requirement of 70-30. So in that sense, they can make the case for that. However, I think the BIR has a different opinion. There, of course, exemptions are strictly construed. So the BIR has issued a ruling to the effect that the law is clear that it has to be rendered within the zone. Hence, right now, the 70-30, under the CREATE provisions, the board has adopted that up to September 12. So that's where we are.
If the issue is the law, and I know that some senators are actually inclined to propose amendments to the law to allow certain industries, of course, no, we're not talking about hard manufacturing or this type of businesses, but if the business will allow, for example, data processing, transcript processing, medical transcript, legal transcript, dami na ngayon processing. Those can be actually done at home. No? In fact, I've seen, in Valenzuela, I've seen two, three, four, even 10 agents doing all of these things at home. No, I think because of the pandemic, they set up a mini BPO in different areas. If that concept, if the law will be allowed, if the law will be amended to allow that concept, will the department be open to looking at that? Because I think that is the trend, no, at this time.
Mr. Chairman, that is actually fine. The other option for those that are these types of BPOs is to, they can register with BOI. They'll be entitled to the same incentives, or don't avail of incentives. I'm just paid a regular tax. There's really nothing that prevents that. It's just that when they are in PEZA, they are covered by that provision. That's the problem. But as you may have read, there are PEZA enterprises that have actually withdrawn from the PEZA regime, quite very big. There's one, the biggest one, I think, with 10,000 employees. They've like left the PEZA regime. They'd rather not enjoy incentives than take out their work from home arrangement. So we have that also.
No, we're just talking about concepts, just looking at how workspaces is actually changing because of the pandemic. The pandemic hastened all of these changes. And internally, some of the senators are proposing to embrace that type of working arrangement. My last question will be on revenue effort, Secretary. What's the target in terms of revenue effort? Um,
I have a slide here somewhere. Ano ba yan? I think this is the one. Our revenue effort for the year is 16.3, right? 16 point, yeah. Said that's revenue divided by GDP. And for the first half of the year, we already hit 16.7, Your Honor. So what we need to do is just hit 13.7 and we'll be meeting our revenue effort. It's much very, very doable.
what is the target, Secretary, for the next 6 years in terms of revenue effort, both tax and non-tax?
We'll give that to you. It's part of the medium-term expenditure framework. We'll send it to you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I was doing my own research and comparing it to ASEAN. In fact, in the
Here
ASEAN,
it is, Your Honor. The revenue effort is for this year is 15.2, or rather for 2023 is 15.3, going all the way up to 17.6 by the end of 2028.
I was doing my I was doing my own research, Secretary. I looked at the revenue effort here in ASEAN, and looking at our peers. I'll just flash the slide. Um, in terms of revenue effort, we're still quite far off from our ASEAN peers. If you compare us to Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, even ASEAN average about 17%. And for the Philippines, about 15%. And if we compare ourselves to OECD, let me just flash the slide. OECD is quite, no, yeah, about 26%. Europe is 20%. Total revenue efforts 30%, 26%, 19% for some OECD regions. So my take on this is we still need to obviously improve our administration, and I'm happy to note that the direction for the next 6 years will be digitalization, and that's part of the improving the administration portion. And later on throughout the next 3 years, we'll be conducting some oversight hearings on purely on administration. This is to look at how to improve our revenue effort, both tax and non-tax, especially on the tax side. No? And I do admit that looking at the trend, we've improved a lot over the last 6 years, and thanks to the massive reforms that were undertaken in the last 6 years. But there's still a lot of room to be. There's still a lot of room to improve. No?
Less than 10, Your
Yeah,
Honor.
correct. Yeah. So we have still room to improve, and we will support the administration's effort on digitalization. Just like you, I'm also a very big fan of that. And just to commend on the, I'd like to commend also some of the highlights that Commissioner Guillermo mentioned earlier on her quest for digitalization, elevating taxpayers' experience and improving customer delight. No? So those are the things that I also want to experience as a taxpayer. No? the delight of paying taxes. No? So that's all for now. In terms of my questions, we will pursue oversight on different issues. This will be more detailed and more, we will request more information on those oversight topics. But today is just purely on organizing this committee, getting to know and getting to meet the new team of the DOF, and of course, congratulating Secretary Diokno and the rest of the team for their appointments. I can sense that Secretary Diokno is familiar with the inner workings of government, and that's good. In times of uncertainty, we need certain policies and certain directions, no? And I can sense that in our discussion today. So, again, thank you very much, Secretary Diokno, for your physical presence. Of course, Commissioner Guillermo, Assistant Secretary Jovi, Treasurer Leah, DepCom Buko, and Executive Director Marlene. So thank you very much for your presence. We just have a few items to request items from the senators. Please submit to us. This is from the different senators. No? Please submit to us details of investments, industry and amount. This is for FIRB. BOC's proposal to revisit RA 4653. This is the ukay issue. Senator Angara requested for the BOC to submit the 15 unautomated items. And also Senator Binay requested for the historical data of cases filed and convicted, both from BIR and BOC. And then the revenue target for POGO. And then from Senator Angara, how many MSMEs availed of the gross and the net options, no, from BIR. And then data on revenue effort for the DOF, additional data. So, okay. So those are the items for submission, and we'll send you a list, no, a formal request for these items. So with that, thank you very much for your time. Secretary, thank you very much for your physical presence, and we'll see you soon in the next hearings and oversight hearings. So maraming salamat po. This meeting is hereby adjourned.